The République, or the Republic, I don't know exactly how you're supposed to pronounce it because I have a real problem pronouncing French words, is the very first Tier 8 premium ship to debut in World of Warships Legends, and in my opinion, it's fantastic. I don't think anything illustrates that better than this single shot here against the Amagi. The reason this ship, in my opinion, is so fantastic comes down almost entirely to the guns, and we'll examine that in greater detail during the feature presentation of this video, but I should note that I recognize my opinion is probably going to be somewhat controversial here. I say that the République is a fantastic ship, and people are going to disagree with me. I think that's going to come down to how you feel about the guns. Because while the guns are, in my opinion, fantastic for a number of reasons, which I'll outline in a second, they are also fairly inconsistent. You can shoot them, as I did at that Amagi, and they can do ridiculous things. Incredible penetration damage, hit the Citadel, blow things up, dev strike them. They can be incredible. But they can also suffer from that shotgun French dispersion and not really hit a lot of things, even with a full accuracy build. So that's something to keep in mind. If inaccurate, or not necessarily inaccurate, but inconsistently accurate battleships irritate you, the République is probably going to irritate you. But there's something that makes up, in my mind, for that lack of consistency, and that is the reload time on these guns. You might have noticed it. It is exceedingly short. It's 20 seconds base, and if you want to spec into it by using the brawler type French commander, or as I like to call them, the survivability type French commander, Geprat, if you use him, you can get the reload down on these guns under 20 seconds. I think around 18.1 seconds is as low as I can get it, which is incredible because these are 430 millimeter guns. And I didn't realize this, but the caliber is actually significant for its overmatch threshold. It turns out that, much like the Georgia's 457 millimeter guns, the République's 430 millimeter guns can overmatch 30 millimeters of armor plating. And while 30 millimeters of armor plating maybe isn't the most significant value right now in this game, there are, after all, only two cruisers that really come to mind, really only one cruiser that comes to mind when you think of 30 millimeter armor plating, and that is, of course, the Tier 7 British light cruiser Edinburgh, which is coated in 30 millimeters of armor plating. This ship can overmatch that ship everywhere, along with the Georgia, and I think as higher tier cruisers come into the game at legendary tier or potentially even tier 8, we might see more with 30 millimeter armor plating, and as a consequence the value of the République's overmatch and the value of the Georgia's overmatch and the like might increase. These guns also deal a hefty amount of damage with their AP alpha. I think the base is 14,000. You can get that above 15,000 if you use gyrating drill bits on the commander. But either way, I think it's best to probably build this ship for accuracy and play it a little bit more at range. Kind of like the Flandre, the République is sort of tanky, and it does, in fact, have one of those French turtlebacks that sometimes, sort of, seems like it works. So it can take a fair bit of punishment in a brawl, although I don't think you are necessarily going to want to put yourself in a situation where you have to brawl, because the ship is otherwise coated in 32 millimeters of armor plating, like all French battleships. 32 millimeters can, of course, be overmatched by the likes of Yamato, and it can be penetrated to hell and back, essentially, with high explosive shells. So this ship will be very vulnerable, like most French battleships, to high explosive. And the more you tend to push in, the more intense high explosive showers seem to get. Meanwhile, what are we doing here? instead of pushing in to those two battleships over there, we're turning away. We didn't want to push into the Odin because he does, of course, have torpedoes, which can one-up us. And another reason the République might not be the most advisable ship to take into a brawl, well, it is fast. It's got a top speed of 30 knots, so that's nice. But it's got a rather unresponsive base rudder shift time, I think in excess of 18 seconds, and its turning circle is 950 millimeters, which puts it up there with the very, well, you certainly wouldn't accuse them of being agile Russian battleships with their huge turning circles, or even something like the Grosse Kurfürst. It kinda, sorta feels like that kind of experience when you're turning this ship. So it's not the best in terms of maneuverability, and it's not necessarily the best for getting into close range. But we are kind of going to get into close range, and you might be wondering at this point, now that I've sailed a circle around that island, what is the reason I am showing you this video? Well, the reason I'm showing you this video is because we were able to take out the Belfast 43 over there, and we're also going to end up taking out this Maine and this Odin. Those are the 3 enemy ships that spawned opposite from us on this flank. Now, obviously, we spawned with 2 cruisers who have been dealing some high explosive penetration damage, maybe even some AP damage against these battleships, but I think I do the lion's share of work here, and I managed to take down essentially this entire flank with the République, and that's not something that can be said for every battleship. Here we're switching to high explosive to give you a demonstration of what that does against an angled target. Obviously this Maine has no intention of opening up his angle for us to get a better chance to penetrate his armor, so HE is going to be where it's at. And notice our secondaries, which have a 6-kilometer base range, are also firing at the Maine, and pleasantly enough, you'll notice that sometimes when they hit, they will actually do damage. That's because the secondaries on the République are probably the most useful secondaries found on any French battleship so far in this game, because they come in 2 sizes. They come in 128 millimeters and 152 millimeters. Typically, the French secondaries are a lot of 100 millimeter guns that are incapable of penetrating destroyer hulls, even with their high explosive shells, and thus are only good for starting fires and will never do direct shell penetration damage. That's true for the majority of secondary guns on newer premium French battleships, like say the Flandre, the campaign reward ship from a couple updates ago, or last update, or whatever it was, can't remember, it was recently though. That has a bunch of 90mm secondaries. They cannot pen anything, and consequently there's no reason to spec into the secondaries or even talk very much about them, no matter how many people in the community would like the Flanders secondaries to be good. They simply are not, and they aren't worth specking into. But that might not be true for the République, because again, 6-kilometer base range on these secondaries, and 128, 152 millimeter secondaries. At the very least, they can pen the superstructure of every ship, they can pen destroyer hulls, and they can maybe pen some cruiser hulls, plus they start fires. So you could theoretically build into the secondaries of the République, although I don't necessarily recommend it. I haven't actually tried it though, and I think I may try it before I do another video on this ship. I'm going to do more than this, just this video, I believe, but essentially this final sequence here is the reason I picked this game. We destroyed the Belfast 43. We destroyed the other battleship. The battleships destroyed our 2 cruiser teammates. We're left alone here against this Odin charging into us. And the Odin has a lot of advantages. He's got secondaries that deal better damage than mine do. He's got good fire chance on those secondaries. He's got HE he can shoot at us, and he has torpedoes, so we can't push into him. We have no choice but to run away. We're trying to take out his guns there, and it's working out beautifully. We managed to permanently disable one. Meanwhile, the enemy aircraft carrier is flying around us, and we've taken down 20 planes for the Clear Skies medal. So, much like the other French battleships, the anti-aircraft firepower on this one is seemingly pretty alright. But we're going to be able to take down this Odin. He has a distinct hit points advantage over us. It's kind of tricky for us to get all of our guns on target. The Republique, of course, has 8 guns, 430 millimeters in size, set in 2 quadruple turrets, and much like the rest of the French battleships, this AP penetration is absolutely phenomenal. And the guns, really, are what make this a fantastic ship, whether you shoot the AP or, in cases like this, the HE, which, as you can see, is halfway decent. And even though the carrier is going to end up taking us out in this game, well, we are going to end up taking out the Odin, thanks to our fire. And basically, I think this is a good little demonstration of what the République is capable of. We are going to go on to lose this game, of course, which isn't ideal, but it is what it is. I just wanted to get a quick first look up at the République for you, in case you guys are thinking about whether you want to buy the Admiralty backing. I would highly recommend it. I think this is a fantastic Tier 8 premium ship, and I'll have more to say on it soon. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.